The gold glitter on the banner spelled out, "Welcome Baby Ellie," and it sparkled under the chandelier lights that I was paying for. My mother, Brenda, raised a crystal flute of vintage champagne, also paid for by me, and announced to the room that our family was finally acting like royalty. She smiled that sweet, venomous smile at me. She didn't know that 3 minutes ago, under the tablecloth, I had just pressed confirm on a fraud report that would nuke her entire existence. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. I stood in the entryway of the Grand Millennium Hotel ballroom, and the first thing I felt was the air conditioning. It was set to that crisp, expensive chill that you only find in places where people don't look at price tags. I was wearing my gray work blazer, the one with the ink stain on the cuff, because I thought I was coming to a dinner. A quiet 4-person dinner to celebrate my promotion. I looked down at my scuffed heels and then up at the room. My stomach turned over. It wasn't a flutter, it was a physical lurch, like missing a step on a staircase. This wasn't a dinner. It was a coronation. The room was bathed in amber light. There were round tables with white linen cloths, centerpiece arrangements of white lilies that had to cost $300 each, and a jazz quartet playing in the corner. I did the math instantly. It's a sickness I have, a side effect of being a forensic accountant. I looked at the flowers and saw $2,000. I looked at the open bar and saw $4,000. I looked at the banner stretching across the ceiling, silk, not paper, and saw $500. I wanted to turn around. My fight-or-flight response was screaming at me to run back to the valet, get in my sedan, and drive until the gas light came on. But my feet felt heavy, like they were encased in concrete. I scanned the crowd. There were at least 100 people here. Cousins I hadn't seen in a decade. Neighbors from the old block. People from my mother's church who had spent the last 5 years praying for my soul because I was 32 and unmarried. They were all drinking champagne. My champagne. I felt a hand on my shoulder and flinched. I expected a waiter telling me I was in the wrong venue. Instead, I turned and saw my mother, Brenda. She wasn't wearing the sensible pantsuit she wore to church. She was wearing a floor-length gold sequined gown that shimmered like a disco ball. Her hair was done up in a complex weave that must have taken 6 hours to install. She beamed at me, her eyes crinkling with a warmth that never quite reached her pupils. "Naomi! Baby!" she shrieked, drawing the attention of the nearest table. "You made it! We were worried you were going to be stuck at the office again." I stared at her. I tried to form words, but my tongue felt thick. I looked at her dress. I looked at the waiter passing by with a tray of lobster tails. "Mom!" I choked out. "What is this?" My internal voice was screaming. "Ask her who paid. Ask her right now." But I couldn't do it. I was paralyzed by the sheer scale of the ambush. Brenda laughed, a tinkling, practiced sound. She looped her arm through mine, her grip surprisingly tight. It wasn't a hug. It was a restraint. She leaned in close, bringing with her the scent of Chanel No. 5, another thing she couldn't afford. "It's a celebration, sweetie," she whispered, guiding me deeper into the room. "For the baby, for Kayla, and for you, of course. You're the guest of honor in a way." I stopped walking. I planted my feet. "For me?" I asked. "Mom, you told me we were getting appetizers at the hotel bar. You said it was just us." She patted my hand dismissively. "Oh, Naomi, don't be so literal. You work so hard. You hoard all that money in those accounts staring at spreadsheets all day. We just wanted to help you use it for something that actually matters. Family joy. Legacy." I felt the blood drain from my face. "We wanted to help you use it." She admitted it. She didn't even try to hide it. She framed grand larceny as a favor to me. "You used the emergency card," I said. My voice was flat. "The one for your heart medication." Brenda waved a manicured hand in the air. "It was an emergency, baby. Kayla was feeling so down. She needed a lift. And look at this." She gestured to the room. Everyone is so happy. Everyone is praising you. I told them all that my generous, successful daughter insisted on throwing the best shower Chicago has ever seen. I looked around the room. People were raising glasses to me, acknowledging the bankroll. They didn't see a sister or a daughter. They saw a walking ATM. I didn't insist on anything, I whispered. Hush now, Brenda hissed, her smile never wavering. Don't ruin the aesthetic, Naomi. Fix your face. People are watching. She dragged me toward the center of the room. There, on a raised platform that looked disturbingly like an altar, sat my younger sister, Kayla. Kayla was glowing. Literally. She had highlighter dusted on her collarbones and was wearing a custom-made maternity gown that draped over her 7-month bump, like she was a Greek goddess. She sat on a velvet high-backed chair, a throne. Standing next to her was her husband, Brandon. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him poorly around the shoulders, holding a glass of scotch that looked older than he was. Brandon, who had borrowed $2,000 from me last Christmas for a business idea that involved selling drop-shipped sunglasses. Brandon, who hadn't held a W-2 job since the Obama administration. When they saw me, Brandon nudged Kayla. She looked up, her eyes widening with a performance of delight that deserved an Academy Award. "Naomi!" Kayla cried out into a microphone she was holding. "Everyone, look, my big sister is here." The room applauded. Actual applause. I felt like I was being skinned alive. I walked up the steps to the platform. I didn't want to. I wanted to vomit. But social pressure is a powerful weapon, and my family wielded it like a bludgeon. "Hey," I said, my voice barely audible over the jazz band. Brandon stepped forward and clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. He smelled of expensive cologne and arrogance. "You really outdid yourself, Naomi," he said, loud enough for the front row to hear. "I gotta admit, I didn't think you had the style for this. I thought you'd book a library basement or something. But this is class." I looked at him. I looked at the smirk playing on his lips. He knew. He knew exactly what this cost, and he knew exactly whose pocket it came from. He was daring me to make a scene. He was betting on my shame being stronger than my anger. "It's a lot," I said, looking at Kayla. "It's extravagant." Kayla pouted. It was a look she had perfected when we were children, the look that always made Brenda force me to give up my toys. "Don't be jealous, Nay," Kayla cooed. "I know it's hard for you being single and everything, but you get to be the cool aunt. You get to be part of the village. That's a gift, isn't it?" I blinked. Jealous? She thought I was jealous. I was currently calculating the compound interest on $20,000 over 30 years. That was nearly $100,000 of retirement savings they were eating in the form of mini quiches. "It's not about jealousy, Kayla," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's about consent. I didn't agree to this." Brenda appeared at my elbow instantly, like she had teleported. She squeezed my arm, her nails digging into my bicep. "Now, Naomi," Brenda purred, her voice dripping with toxic sweetness. "Don't be selfish. We're trying to help you. You have all that money sitting there doing nothing. It's cold. Money should be warm. It should nurture the family. We're giving you a chance to be useful, to be a matriarch." "I'm 32, I snapped. "I'm not a matriarch. I'm a victim of theft." Brandon laughed. He actually laughed. "Theft? Come on, Naomi. It's family. You can't steal from family. It's all the same pot, right? When my startup takes off next month, I was planning to pay you back double anyway. Consider this an investment." I looked at his eyes. They were glassy. He was drunk. Drunk on my dime. "Your startup," I repeated. "The sunglasses?" "It's crypto now," Brandon said, waving his hand dismissively. "Big things coming. But tonight, let's just focus on baby Ellie. Don't bring your corporate negative energy into my daughter's blessing." I looked at the three of them. Brenda, desperate to look rich. Kayla, desperate to be worshipped. Brandon, desperate to feel powerful. They had constructed a fantasy world where they were royalty, and they had conscripted me to pay the rent on their delusion. I felt a cracking sensation in my chest. It was the sound of my patience finally breaking. "I need to use the restroom," I said. "Good," Brenda whispered, leaning in. "Go freshen up, put on some lipstick. You look like you're going to a funeral." "Noted," I said. I pushed through the heavy double doors of the ballroom and walked down the hallway to the ladies' room. The silence of the corridor was a relief, but the thumping of the bass from the party followed me like a heartbeat. I walked into the restroom. It was marble and gold, with cloth towels stacked in a pyramid by the sink. I walked to the sink and gripped the cold porcelain. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale. My eyes looked tired behind my glasses. I looked exactly like what they said I was, the boring, responsible one. The one who worked 60 hours a week auditing corporate fraud so that they could play pretend. I splashed cold water on my face. I needed to calm down. I needed to think. $20,000. That was my down payment. That was my escape plan. I had been saving that bonus for 2 years to buy a condo in the city, far away from Maple Avenue, far away from them. The door to the restroom opened. I ducked into a stall. I didn't have the energy to make small talk with a cousin I hadn't seen since I was 12. I sat on the closed lid of the toilet and hugged my knees. 2 women walked in. Their heels clicked sharply on the tile. "Can you believe this spread?" one voice said. I recognized it. It was Aunt Sheila, my mother's younger sister. "It's gorgeous," another voice replied, a neighbor, Mrs. Gable. "Brenda really went all out." "Brenda?" Aunt Sheila laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "Brenda doesn't have a pot to piss in. This is all Naomi." "The daughter?" "The accountant?" "Yeah," Sheila said. "Poor thing. She's the mule. Brenda just rides her until she drops. Did you see her dress? Looks like she got it at a Goodwill bin." "Well," Mrs. Gable said, the sound of a lipstick tube popping open echoing in the room. "At least she's good for something. You know she can't keep a man. Too intense. Too masculine with her money. It's good she's spending it on Kayla. Kayla gives the family life. Naomi just gives checks." "True," Sheila agreed. "It's better this way. Some women are mothers, some women are providers. Naomi is a provider. She should be grateful they let her sit at the head table." They laughed. They finished their touch-ups and walked out, the door swooshing shut behind them. I sat there in the silence. Some women are providers. She should be grateful. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It wasn't a scream. It was a quiet, mechanical click, like a vault door locking. They didn't love me. They didn't even like me. They viewed me as a utility. I was no different to them than the power company or the water main. You don't thank the electricity for turning on the lights. You just complain when the bill comes. Well, the bill was due. I stood up. I didn't cry. I smoothed down my blazer. I adjusted my glasses. I wasn't the sad spinster aunt anymore. I was the auditor, and I had just found a massive discrepancy in the books. I didn't go back into the ballroom. I walked out the side exit of the hotel, into the cool night air. The valet stepped forward, reaching for a ticket I didn't have. I waved him off and walked to the self-park lot across the street. I got into my sedan. It was a 5-year-old Honda, reliable and paid off. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. The muffled sound of the city traffic felt like a cocoon. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. I never went anywhere without it. It was my shield. I tethered the laptop to my phone's hotspot. The connection was slow, 1 bar of LTE. I watched the loading circle spin, my heart matching its rhythm. "Come on," I whispered. "Connect." The banking portal loaded. I typed in my username and password. My fingers were steady. The rage had burned off the adrenaline, leaving only a cold, hard focus. I clicked on accounts. I saw it immediately. The joint checking account I shared with my mother, the one I kept open for her medical emergencies, was glowing red. I clicked on transaction history. I didn't just look at the total. I needed the line items. I needed the evidence. October 14th, Grand Millennium Hotel deposit, $5,000. October 15th, Lux Catering Services, $8,400. October 15th, Velvet Rope Event Planners, $3,000. October 16th, Midnight Jazz Quartet, $2,000. October 16th, Golden Petal Florist, $1,000. I scrolled down. There were smaller charges too. Uber Black Rides, a rush order for a custom sash, a charge for a Glam Squad makeup team that morning. I pulled up the calculator app. I punched in the numbers, whispering them aloud as I typed. 5,000, 8,400, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000. Total, $19,400. And there was more. I saw pending authorizations, a hold for the open bar, a security deposit for the audio equipment. They hadn't just spent my bonus. They had drained the account to zero and were now dipping into the overdraft protection. I sat back in my seat. The blue light of the laptop screen illuminated the tears I refused to shed. This wasn't a party. It was a robbery. I looked at the timestamps. The catering charge had gone through 2 hours ago. The band was paid up front. But the venue... I clicked on the venue contract detail attached to the transaction. 50% deposit paid, remaining balance due upon conclusion of event. They still owed another $5,000 to the hotel, and they were currently inside, eating lobster, thinking the bill was paid. I looked at the Authorized Users tab. Brenda Williams, status, active. I hovered my mouse over the Edit button. I picked up my phone. I didn't want to do this online. I wanted to hear a human voice confirm it. I wanted it on the record. I dialed the number on the back of my debit card. Platinum Client Services. Welcome to Chase, the automated voice said. Please enter your 16-digit card number. I typed it in. For balance inquiries, press 1. For lost or stolen cards, press 2. I pressed 2. Please wait while we connect you to a specialist. Generic jazz music started playing. It sounded ironically similar to the band playing inside the ballroom. I tapped my fingers on the steering wheel. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Chase Fraud Department, this is Sarah. To whom am I speaking? This is Naomi Williams, I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. I need to report unauthorized activity on my account ending in 4490. Okay, Ms. Williams, I can help with that. Can you verify your mother's maiden name? Johnson, I said. Thank you. I see some large transactions posting today. Are these the ones you're concerned about? Yes, I said. I did not authorize the charge to the Grand Millennium. I did not authorize the catering. I did not authorize the florist. I see, Sarah said. Her typing was audible in the background. There is a secondary cardholder on this account, Brenda Williams. Were these charges made by her? I hesitated for a fraction of a second. This was the point of no return. If I said yes, it was a domestic dispute. If I said no, if I said it was unauthorized? The card was intended for medical emergencies only, I said clearly. These charges are for a party I was not informed of. This is theft. I want to mark the charges as fraudulent, and I want to remove Brenda Williams as an authorized user immediately. Okay, Sarah said, her voice turning serious. If we mark this as fraud, the account will be frozen instantly. Any active cards will be declined. We will initiate a chargeback investigation. Do it, I said. And the authorized user? Remove her, cancel her card, right now. 1 moment, please. I waited. I watched a couple walk out of the hotel, laughing, holding a favor bag from my sister's party. They were holding a candle that I paid for. It's done, Sarah came back on the line. The account is locked. The dispute process has started. The funds should be provisionally credited back to you within 48 hours, pending the investigation. Is there anything else? No, I said. Thank you, Sarah. You've been very helpful. I hung up. I looked at the laptop screen. I hit refresh. Status, frozen. Brenda Williams, removed. I closed the laptop. I disconnected the hotspot. I felt light, weightless. I could have driven away then. I could have gone home, ordered a pizza, and waited for the fallout. But I was an auditor. I needed to verify the results. I opened my car door and stepped back out into the night. I walked back toward the hotel entrance. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to watch. I slipped back into the ballroom. I didn't go to the center of the room. I stood near the bar in the shadows, leaning against a pillar. The party was in full swing. The jazz band was playing a lively, upbeat number. Waiters were circulating with trays of filet mignon sliders. I grabbed a slider from a passing tray. I took a bite. It was delicious. It tasted like justice. I watched the hotel manager, a tall man in a sharp suit, walking through the crowd. He wasn't smiling. He was holding a wireless card terminal. He was heading straight for the head table. I checked my watch. It was 10 p.m. The event was winding down. It was time to settle the final tab for the open bar and the remaining venue fee. I saw the manager lean in and whisper something to Brandon. Brandon laughed, slapped the manager on the back, and reached into his tuxedo pocket. He pulled out the card. My mother's card. The one I had given her for emergencies. Brandon handed it over with a flourish, like he was buying the building. The manager inserted the chip. I held my breath. The machine let out a loud, harsh beep. I saw Brandon frown. He said something to the manager. The manager shook his head and tried it again. Beep. Brandon's smile faltered. He looked over at Brenda. Brenda was busy holding court with the pastor, showing off the centerpiece. The manager said something else. He gestured to the machine. Brandon patted his pockets. He pulled out his wallet and produced another card, his own, presumably. He swiped it. Beep. I knew that sound. That was the sound of insufficient funds. Brandon was broke. We all knew he was broke. That's why they were using my money. The manager's body language changed. He stood straighter. He wasn't the servant anymore. He was the collector. He crossed his arms. I saw Brenda notice the commotion. She excused herself from the pastor and bustled over, her sequins rustling. She grabbed the card from Brandon and handed it back to the manager, pointing at it aggressively. She was probably telling him to run it as credit, not debit. The manager ran it again. Beep. The music seemed to stop, though the band was still playing. I saw the color drain from Brenda's face even from 50 feet away. She looked at the card, then she looked at her phone. She was probably checking the banking app. She would see the words, account locked. She would see user access revoked. She spun around, scanning the room. Her eyes were wild. She was looking for me. I took another bite of the slider. I stepped out of the shadows for just a second, letting the light catch my glasses. Our eyes locked across the crowded room. She gasped. She pointed at me. She started to push her way through the crowd, her mouth open in a scream I couldn't hear yet. "Naomi," she mouthed. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just turned around and walked out the double doors. Behind me, I heard the manager's voice rise above the jazz. "Sir, ma'am, if you cannot provide payment, I will have to call the authorities. This is theft of services." I walked through the lobby, past the valet, and out into the cool night. I got in my car. I didn't speed. I drove the speed limit all the way home. I sat in the driver's seat of my Honda, parked in the detached garage of my rental complex. I turned the engine off, but I didn't get out. I just sat there in the sudden silence, listening to the ticking of the cooling metal. Then, the buzzing started. It began as a vibration in my purse, a low hum against the passenger seat leather. Then it escalated. It wasn't a rhythm, it was a seizure. My phone was vibrating so hard it was actually moving across the seat. I stared at it. I knew I should leave it. I knew a therapist would tell me to turn it off, to block the numbers, to practice self-care. But I wasn't in therapy. I was in a war. And in a war, you need intelligence. I picked up the phone. The screen was a cascade of notifications: 47 missed calls, 20 from Brenda, 12 from Brandon, 15 from Kayla, 103 text messages. I unlocked the screen. My thumb hovered over the block button, but I didn't press it. Instead, I opened the family group chat. I needed to see the timeline of their panic. The first message was from Brenda at 10:05 p.m. It read that the card was not working and asked if I had changed the PIN number. The second message, 2 minutes later, was from Kayla. It said that the manager was threatening to call the police and that I needed to come back immediately. Then, the tone shifted. At 10:15 p.m., Brandon wrote that I was a selfish bitch and that I was ruining his daughter's legacy. At 10:30 p.m., Brenda wrote that the police were there. She said they were humiliating her. She asked how I could do this to the woman who birthed me. I scrolled down to the most recent messages. They were from 5 minutes ago. Brandon had sent a voice note. I pressed play. His voice filled the small space of my car, tinny and distorted, but the rage was crystal clear. "You think you're smart, Naomi? You think you can just cut us off? That's financial abuse." I looked it up. You can't leave a pregnant woman stranded. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take that little condo fund you're so proud of, and I'm going to spend it on a lawyer to destroy you. Call me back right now, or I swear to God. The message cut off. He must have hit the time limit or thrown the phone. I sat there, breathing in the scent of stale air freshener. Financial abuse. The audacity was breathtaking. They steal $20,000 from me, and when I stop them from stealing more, I'm the abuser. I didn't reply. I didn't type a witty comeback. I simply took a screenshot of the texts. I saved the voice note to my cloud drive. Then I put the phone in my pocket, grabbed my laptop bag, and walked up the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment. My legs felt heavy, like I was walking through water, but my mind was racing at 1,000 miles an hour. They were threatening legal action. Good, I spoke legal. I woke up at 6 a.m. out of habit. My alarm hadn't even gone off yet. For a second, just a split second, I forgot. I stared at the ceiling fan, the one that wobbled if you turned it on high, and thought about making coffee and going to the gym. Then the memory of the ballroom crashed down on me. The gold banner, the declined card, the police. I sat up. My apartment was quiet. It was a 1-bedroom in a gentrifying neighborhood, but it was sparse. I had a beige sofa I bought on clearance, a TV mounted on the wall, and a dining table that doubled as my desk. There were no sequined gowns here, no vintage champagne, just the dull, gray reality of someone who saves 50% of their income. I walked to the kitchen and made coffee. I drank it black. The bitterness helped wake me up. I checked my phone. No new messages since 3 a.m. They must have finally exhausted themselves or run out of battery. I needed to make the next move. If I waited, they would come here. They would bang on my door, scream in the hallway, and get me evicted. I couldn't play defense anymore. I had to play offense. I walked into my bedroom and knelt down. I pulled a plastic fireproof box from under the bed. I dialed the combination, my father's birthday, and popped the lid. Inside were my essential documents, my birth certificate, my social security card, my passport, and at the very bottom, a thick envelope made of heavy, cream-colored paper. I pulled it out. The deed. 5 years ago, when my father died, Brenda had called me in hysterics. The bank was foreclosing. Dad had refinanced the house 3 times to pay for gambling debts I didn't know about. They were going to be homeless in 30 days, so I fixed it. I always fixed it. I took every cent of my savings, plus a hardship loan from my 401k, and I bought the house from the bank. I paid off the arrears. I let Brenda stay there. I let her play the grieving widow who kept the family home. We never talked about the rent she didn't pay. We never talked about the property taxes I paid every November. I looked at the document. Owner, Naomi Williams. Not Brenda. Not the family trust. Me. I slid the deed into my bag. I grabbed my keys. I wasn't just the bank anymore. I was the landlord. And I had some tenants who were violating the lease. I parked my car a block away from the house on Maple Avenue. It was a 2-story brick Victorian that looked charming from the street, but I knew the roof needed patching and the boiler was on its last legs. I pulled out my phone. I opened the Find My Family app. We had set it up years ago for safety, and since I paid the phone bill, I was the administrator. They had never bothered to figure out how to turn it off. I watched the 3 dots on the map. They were all clustered at a Motel 6 on the outskirts of town near the airport. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. They hadn't come home. They probably couldn't get a locksmith in the middle of the night without cash, and their keys were likely locked inside the venue or seized by the police as part of the dispute. Or maybe they were just too ashamed to face the neighbors yet. I had time. I walked up the driveway. I called the locksmith I had looked up on the way over, a guy named Speedy Steve, with 5 stars on Yelp. He arrived in a battered van 20 minutes later. He was a big guy with a beard and a tool belt that jingled when he walked. "You locked out?" he asked, eyeing my Blazer. "Lost my keys," I lied, "and I need to change the cylinders anyway, break up." He nodded sagely. "Happens all the time. You got ID? Proof of residence?" "I have the deed," I said, pulling the envelope from my bag. He whistled. "Don't see that every day. Usually it's just a driver's license." He checked the name on the deed against my license. He looked at the house, then back at me. "All right, Ms. Williams. Which door you want to start with?" "All of them," I said. "Front, back, and the side door to the garage." I stood on the porch while he worked. The sound of the drill was loud, aggressive. It felt like violence against the house, but it was necessary surgery. My heart was hammering against my ribs. What if they show up? I imagined Brenda's car screeching into the driveway. I imagined Brandon trying to tackle the locksmith. I checked the tracking app every 30 seconds. The dots were still at the Motel 6. They were sleeping off the humiliation. "Front door is done," Steve said, handing me a shiny new brass key. "You want me to do the deadbolt too?" "Yes," I said. "Everything." I took the key. It felt heavy in my hand. This was it. I was physically locking my mother out of the home she had lived in for 30 years. A wave of guilt washed over me. It was sharp and cold. "She raised you in this house," a voice in my head whispered. "She made you soup when you were sick. She braided your hair on this porch." I squeezed the key until the metal bit into my palm. "She also stole $20,000 yesterday," I reminded myself. "She also watched you work yourself to death and called you selfish." The guilt receded, replaced by the cold, hard math of survival. "Keep going," I told Steve. "Don't stop until every lock is changed." I was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard the car door slam. It was 11 a.m. The locksmith had been gone for an hour. I had spent that hour pacing the living room, moving stacks of unread mail from the counter to the trash, trying to keep my hands busy. I heard footsteps on the porch, then the sound of a key scratching against the lock. It didn't turn. I heard a jiggle, a curse word, then aggressive rattling. "It's stuck," Brandon's voice. "This piece of junk door." "Let me try," Brenda said. More scratching, more rattling. Then the doorbell rang. Once, twice. Then a continuous, angry press. I stood up. I smoothed my blazer. I walked to the door. I unlocked the deadbolt, the new deadbolt, and opened the door. The 3 of them stood there. They looked like refugees from a failed gala. Brenda was still in her gold sequin dress, but the sequins were dull in the daylight, and the hem was stained with dirt. Her wig was slightly askew. Kayla was wearing Brandon's tuxedo jacket over her gown, looking shivering and miserable. Brandon looked like he wanted to punch someone. His tie was undone, hanging around his neck like a noose. When they saw me, the silence was absolute for exactly 1 second. Then Brenda exploded. "You!" she screamed. She lunged forward, but I didn't move. I just stood in the doorway, blocking the entrance. You devil, you left us there. Do you know what happened? Do you know the police put me in the back of a car? Me, a deaconess. I heard, I said calmly. It sounds stressful. Stressful? Brandon shouted. He pushed past Brenda, stepping up into my face. He smelled of stale sweat and cheap motel soap. It was false imprisonment. And now you changed the locks? Are you crazy? This is illegal. You can't lock us out of our own house. My house, I corrected him. Our house, Brenda shrieked. Your father built this life for us. How dare you stand there and tell me I can't come into my own home? I have the deed right here, I said, gesturing to the table behind me. And I have the receipts from the mortgage payments for the last 5 years. You haven't paid a dime, Mom. Not one dime. I paid in love, Brenda wailed. She grabbed her chest, leaning against the doorframe for support. I paid in sacrifice. I raised you. I gave up my life for you. And yesterday you stole $20,000 from me, I said. That debt is paid. Kayla spoke up from the back. Her voice was small, trembling. Naomi, please, I need to pee. I'm pregnant. You can't do this to me. It's bad for the baby. I looked at her. I looked at the round swell of her stomach. The old Naomi would have folded. The old Naomi would have let them in, made them tea, and listened to their excuses. But the old Naomi was broke. The new Naomi was an auditor. You can use the hose around the back, I said, or you can go to the gas station on the corner. Brandon's face turned purple. He raised his hand. He pointed a finger inches from my nose. You listen to me, you bitter little spinster, he spat. You open this door right now or I will kick it down, and then I will sue you for every penny you have. Kick it down, I said. I have the locksmith's invoice. I'll just add the repairs to the civil suit I'm filing for the theft. Brenda's demeanor changed instantly. The rage evaporated, replaced by a look of profound, wounded matriarchy. This was her superpower. She could switch from predator to victim faster than I could open a spreadsheet. She reached out and touched my cheek. Her hand was cold. Naomi, baby, she cooed. Her voice was soft, trembling with unshed tears. Look at you. You're upset. I understand. We shouldn't have surprised you with the party. That was wrong. She was admitting fault. This was new. I stiffened, waiting for the trap. But you have to understand, she continued, her eyes searching mine. I didn't steal that money. I borrowed it. I was going to pay you back. I just wanted Kayla to have what you never had. I wanted the family to look good, for you, so people would respect you. Respect me? I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. By spending my down payment on lobster? By showing them we are prosperous, Brenda said intensely. By showing them that the Williams women take care of each other. Honey, the money is just numbers on a screen. We are flesh and blood. I birthed you. I held you when you had chicken pox. Does $20,000 mean more to you than your mother's dignity? She was good. She was so good. She was weaponizing my childhood, twisting my memories into a debt I could never repay. It's not about the money, Mom, I said, my voice wavering slightly. It's about the lie. You hacked my account. I didn't hack anything, she said, looking hurt. I used the card you gave me. I thought you trusted me. I thought we were partners. I thought you wanted to be the head of this family. I never asked to be the head of the family, I shouted. I just wanted to buy a condo. I just wanted my own life. And you have it. Brenda gestured to the house. This is your house. You said so yourself. We are just living in it. We are your family. Where are we supposed to go, Naomi? To a shelter. Is that what you want? Do you want your pregnant sister sleeping on a cot with junkies? We have nowhere to go, Naomi, Kayla whimpered. Please, just let us in. We can talk about the money later. I'm scared. I looked at them. The three of them, huddled on the porch in the cold. They looked pathetic. They looked like my family. My resolve wavered. Maybe I am being too harsh, I thought. Maybe I can set up a payment plan. Maybe I can let them stay until the baby comes. Then I remembered the text message from last night, the one from Brandon. I'm going to take that little condo fund and destroy you. They weren't sorry. They were just cornered. You have 30 days, I said. I pulled 3 envelopes from my inner pocket. I had printed the eviction notices at the library on my way over. This is your formal notice to vacate. You can stay for 30 days because the law requires it. But if you steal $1 more or break one more thing, I will call the sheriff and have you removed immediately. I shoved the envelopes into Brenda's hand. Here are the new keys, I said, dropping 3 brass keys into her palm. Do not lose them. Copies are $50. I stepped back and slammed the door in their faces. I locked the deadbolt. I leaned against the door, sliding down until I hit the floor. I listened to them unlock the door from the outside. I listened to them walk in. I stood up and walked out the back door before they could say another word. I drove back to my apartment in a daze. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I felt sick. I had done it. I had served my own mother with an eviction notice. I got inside my apartment and threw my bag on the floor. I needed a shower. I needed to wash the feeling of their desperation off my skin. My phone buzzed. Then it buzzed again and again. I picked it up. It wasn't a text this time. It was a notification from Instagram. Kayla B is live. My sister made me homeless. My stomach dropped through the floor. I tapped the notification. The video loaded. Kayla was sitting in her old bedroom, my house, tears streaming down her face. She had wiped off the highlighter, so she looked pale and tragic. Hey guys, she sniffled into the camera. The viewer count was climbing. 500, 600. I don't even know what to say. We just got home from the hospital. The hotel, and my sister Naomi, she broke down into practiced sobs. She served us eviction papers, Kayla cried. She kicked us out, me, her pregnant sister, and our elderly mother, because of a misunderstanding about a party bill. She makes 6 figures, guys. She works for a huge bank. She has so much money, and she's putting us on the street because she's jealous that I'm having a baby and she's alone. I watched the comments roll in on the side of the screen. User 77. What a monster. Mommy. Bear 22. Call the news. This is elder abuse. Crypto King. Rich people are the worst. Eat the rich. Sarah J. Drop her name. Let's find her employer. I don't want to hate her, Kayla whispered, looking directly into the lens. But how can family do this? She locked us out. We had to beg to get back in. I'm scared for my baby's stress levels. Brenda appeared in the background of the video, looking forlornly out the window. It was perfectly staged. Please, Kayla said, if anyone knows a lawyer who helps victims of financial abuse, DM me. We need help against big corporate greed. I stared at the screen. Big corporate greed? I drove a 5-year-old Honda and shopped at TJ Maxx. They were projecting their own sins onto me, and the internet was eating it up. Drop her name. Find her employer. I felt a cold chill settle over me. They weren't just fighting for the house anymore. They were coming for my livelihood. They were trying to unemploy me so I would be as broken as they were. I took a screenshot of the live stream. I started screen recording. Okay, Kayla, I whispered to the empty room. You want to play the victim? Let's see how that holds up against a forensic audit. I walked into the glass lobby of the firm at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, just like I had every day for 7 years. I scanned my badge at the turnstile. Beep, beep. Red light. I frowned. I wiped the card on my blazer and tried again. Beep, beep. Red light. A security guard I didn't recognize stepped out from behind the desk. He wasn't smiling. Ms. Williams? He asked. Please come with me. My heart started to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It's a glitch, I told myself. Just a system error. But deep down, I knew. I had seen the view count on Kayla's video before I went to sleep. 50,000 views. He escorted me not to the elevators, but to a small, airless conference room on the ground floor. Sitting there was Linda, the director of human resources, and a man from legal I had only seen in passing. Linda didn't offer me coffee. She turned her laptop around. On the screen was a paused frame of Kayla's tear-streaked face. "Naomi," Linda said, her voice soft, professional, and utterly lethal. "We were alerted to this situation this morning by several concerned clients." I felt the blood drain from my extremities. Clients. We're watching my sister cry about being homeless. "This is a personal family dispute," I said, my voice shaking. "It has nothing to do with my work. That video is a lie. I own the property. They are non-paying tenants." "We understand that," the legal guy said, "but you work in forensic accounting. Your reputation is your currency. We handle sensitive assets for high net worth individuals. We cannot have a senior auditor trending on Twitter for elder abuse and housing discrimination." "It's not elder abuse," I protested. "It's theft recovery." Linda held up a hand. "Perception is reality, Naomi. Until this blows over or is resolved legally, we have to place you on administrative leave, indefinitely, without pay." Without pay. The words hung in the air like smoke. My mortgage, my rent, the lawyer I needed to hire. "You can't do that," I whispered. "I'm the victim here." "We're doing this for you," Linda said, giving me a pitying look that made me want to scream. "Take this time to heal your family dynamic. Go be with your sister. Fix this. When the noise stops, we can talk about reinstatement." She slid a plastic bin across the table. "Your personal effects from your desk. Please hand over your badge and company phone." I handed them over. I felt like I was handing over my identity. I wasn't Naomi the auditor anymore. I was just Naomi the villain from the internet. I sat at my dining table, staring at the blank wall. My apartment was too quiet. Usually I was surrounded by the hum of servers and the chatter of colleagues. Now the only sound was the refrigerator cycling on and off. I opened my personal laptop. It was an old MacBook, slow and clunky compared to the dual monitor beast I used at the office. I tried to log into my professional email. Access denied. I tried to log into the proprietary databases I used to track assets. Access denied. I put my head in my hands. They had stripped me of my tools. I was a carpenter without a hammer. "Okay," I thought. "You don't need Bloomberg. You have public records. You have time." I needed to know how deep the rot went. I had found the $19,000 for the party, but that was just the surface. Brandon had been borrowing money from Brenda for years, and Brenda had been claiming she was broke ever since Dad died. I logged into the joint account again, the one I had frozen. I downloaded the PDF statements for the last 5 years. The file was huge. It took 3 minutes to download on my cheap residential Wi-Fi. I watched the blue progress bar inch across the screen, my anxiety spiking with every pause. "Come on," I muttered. "Don't crash." The file opened. 5 years of transactions, thousands of lines. I didn't have my auditing software to highlight anomalies automatically. I had to do it the hard way. I opened a blank spreadsheet. I started typing. Date, description, amount. My eyes blurred. I typed until my fingers cramped. I was looking for patterns. I was looking for the leak. 3 hours later, my coffee was cold and my eyes were burning, but I had found it. It wasn't a leak. It was a hemorrhage. I was looking at a statement from 4 years ago, August, the month after my father's funeral. I remembered that month. Brenda had sat on the floor of the living room weeping into a handkerchief, telling me that Dad had left us nothing but debt. She told me the life insurance had lapsed. She told me the pension fund was insolvent. That was why I took out the loan. That was why I bought the house. I looked at the line item on the screen. August 12th. Department of Treasury, wire deposit, $85,000. I stopped breathing. I read it again. $85,000. It was listed as pension lump sum survivor benefit. She had lied. She had stared me in the face, watched me sign away my financial freedom to save her, while she had $85,000 sitting in the bank. I felt a cold fury rising in my chest. It wasn't the hot anger of the party. This was colder. This was the realization that my entire adult life had been built on a foundation of manipulation. Where did it go? I scrolled forward. September, October, November. I didn't see any large purchases, no new car, no renovations on the house, but I saw transfers. September 1st, Zelle transfer to Brandon Consultations, $2,000. October 1st, Zelle transfer to Brandon Consultations, $2,000. November 15th, wire transfer to Brandon Consultations, $5,000. It was a drip feed. Every month, chunks of my father's legacy were being siphoned off to an entity controlled by my brother-in-law. I quickly summed the column. Over 4 years, the total transferred to Brandon Consultations was exactly $82,000. She had given him everything. She had given him my inheritance, her security, and my peace of mind. Brandon Consultations. I typed the name into Google. Nothing. No website, no LinkedIn profile, no reviews. Of course, I whispered. It's a shell. I went to the Secretary of State's business search portal. I typed in the name. Search results. 1 record found. I clicked on it. A paywall popped up. Document access fee, $10. I pulled out my credit card. My hand was shaking so hard I mistyped the number twice. I forced myself to slow down. Breathe. Accuracy is power. I paid the fee. The Articles of Incorporation downloaded. I opened the PDF. Entity name, Brandon Consultations, LLC. Manager, Brandon James. Date of formation, August 30th, 2020. 2 weeks after the pension check hit. He must have known. He must have been waiting like a vulture for the check to clear. I looked for the business address. Usually, for a small business, it's just the owner's home address. I expected to see the house on Maple Avenue. I scanned down to the principal office section, 500 North Lake Shore Drive, Unit 40B. I froze. I knew Chicago real estate. I knew every zip code. North Lake Shore Drive wasn't an office park. It wasn't a co-working space. It was the Glass Spire, one of the most exclusive residential towers in the city. I pulled up Zillow. I typed in the address. Unit 40B, luxury penthouse suite, estimated rent, $4,500 per month. My mind couldn't reconcile it. Brandon was broke. He borrowed money for gas. He wore knockoff sneakers. How was his business located in a penthouse that cost more than my monthly salary? Was he squatting? Was it a mistake? Or was Brenda paying for it? I looked back at the spreadsheet. $2,000 a month, sometimes $5,000. That was rent. My mother was paying the rent on a secret luxury apartment for her unemployed son-in-law. I couldn't do this from a computer anymore. I needed eyes on the target. I grabbed my keys and my coat. I put on a baseball cap and sunglasses, even though it was overcast. I felt paranoid. I felt like everyone on the street had seen Kayla's video and knew who I was. I drove to the Gold Coast. The traffic was heavy, stop and go. It gave me time to overthink. Why does he need an apartment? I asked myself. He lives with Kayla. He sleeps in her bed. Is it an office? Does he actually have clients? No, Brandon didn't have clients. Brandon had concepts. I pulled up to the Glass Spire. It was a monolith of steel and blue glass, rising 50 stories above the lake. A doorman in a top hat was opening the door for a woman carrying a poodle. I parked 3 blocks away in a public garage, $20 for the first hour, and walked back. I couldn't just walk in. The doorman would stop me. I walked to the vestibule, the small area between the outer doors and the locked inner doors where the intercom panel was located. I pretended to be looking for a key in my purse. I scanned the digital directory. I scrolled to the B's. Brandon Consultations? No. I scrolled to the J's. James B? No. I typed in the unit number directly. 40B. The screen flashed. Unit 40B, resident T. Stiles. T. Stiles, not Brandon. I pulled out my phone. I searched Stiles Chicago. Too many results. I searched Brandon James Stiles. Nothing. I stood there, pretending to text, shivering in the vestibule. Who was T. Stiles? A business partner? A roommate? Then the inner door opened. A delivery guy walked out. I caught the door before it latched, just a fraction of an inch. I slipped inside the lobby. The lobby smelled of fresh lilies and money, the same smell as the party, but real this time. I sat in a high-backed armchair in the far corner behind a large fern. I pulled out a magazine from the table and pretended to read. I waited. 1 hour passed. My leg fell asleep. I was hungry, but I couldn't leave. At 4:15 p.m., the elevator dinged. I lowered the magazine just enough to see over the top. The doors opened. Brandon walked out. He looked different. He wasn't wearing the ill-fitting suit or the stained sweatpants he wore at home. He was wearing dark designer jeans, a fitted black t-shirt, and a leather jacket that looked like it cost $1,000. He looked confident. He looked rich. And he wasn't alone. Walking next to him, her arm looped through his, was a woman. She was young, maybe 22. She had long, impossibly shiny hair extensions and was wearing a matching yoga set that showed off a perfect gym-sculpted body. She was laughing at something he said. She looked up at him with total adoration. They stopped in the middle of the lobby. Brandon turned to her. He didn't look stressed about the eviction. He didn't look worried about his pregnant wife sleeping at a motel. He cupped the woman's face in his hands. He kissed her. It wasn't a peck. It was deep, possessive. "I'll see you tomorrow, baby," I heard him say. "I gotta go deal with the dragon." "Don't let her stress you out, Daddy," the woman cooed. "Just get the check." Daddy. My stomach lurched violently. He was living a double life. My mother's stolen pension wasn't funding a startup. It was funding her. It was funding this apartment, these clothes, this affair. He walked toward the revolving doors. I shrank back into the chair, hiding my face with the magazine. He didn't see me. He was too busy checking his reflection in the glass. I waited until he was gone. Then I looked at the woman. She walked over to the concierge desk to pick up a package. "Package for Unit 40B?" she asked. "For Tara." Tara. I had a name. I watched her walk back to the elevator, swinging a Hermes shopping bag. I wasn't just investigating fraud anymore. I was investigating the destruction of my sister's life. And for the first time since the party, I didn't feel angry at Kayla. I felt terrified for her. I sat in my car in the parking garage, watching the digital clock on the dashboard tick from 4:30 to 4:31. My hands were freezing. The image of Brandon kissing that woman, Tara, was burned into my retinas. Tara. I needed more than a first name. I needed a trail. I unlocked my phone. I didn't go to Google. I went to Instagram. The Glass Spire was a vanity address. People who lived there didn't hide it. They broadcast it. I searched the location tag, The Glass Spire Chicago. Thousands of photos loaded. Sunsets, lattes, gym selfies. I scrolled. My thumb moved automatically, a rhythm of swipe, scan, reject. I was looking for the hair, that impossibly shiny, expensive weave. 10 minutes passed, then I saw it. A photo posted 3 days ago, a woman posing on a balcony with the Chicago skyline in the background. The caption read, "View from the top, CEO life. Blessed Chicago, my man spoils me." The handle was Tara Stiles. I clicked the profile. It was public. Of course it was public. Secrets don't get likes. I scrolled through her feed. It was a shrine to consumption. October 1st, a photo of a new Louis Vuitton Neverfull bag. Caption, "First of the month treat. He knows the way to my heart." I froze. I toggled back to my spreadsheet on the laptop. October 1st. Transfer from Brenda's joint account to Brandon Consultations, $2,500. The bag cost $2,030 plus tax. I kept scrolling. September 15th. A video of a spa day at the Peninsula Hotel. Couples massage with my king. I checked the bank statement. September 15th. Wire transfer, $500. I felt a bile rise in my throat. It was a perfect match. Every time my mother invested in Brandon's business, Tara got a gift. Brenda wasn't building a legacy. She was buying lingerie for her son-in-law's mistress. I looked at a photo from 2 weeks ago. Tara and Brandon were at a steakhouse. Brandon was holding a glass of wine, wearing a watch I had never seen before. My mother was sitting in a house with a leaking roof, eating canned soup, terrified of the future, while her son was eating Wagyu beef with a 22-year-old. I took screenshots of everything, the dates, the captions, the geotags. I created a folder on my desktop named The Truth. I drove home in silence. The radio felt too loud, the city noise felt too aggressive. When I walked into my apartment, I collapsed onto the beige sofa. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the dark, watching the streetlights cast long shadows across the floor. I thought about Kayla, my little sister, the one who stole my dolls, the one who told the internet I was a monster, the one who was currently carrying a child she couldn't afford. She was vile. She was entitled. But she was also being played. Brandon was living a double life on a scale that was almost impressive in its depravity. He had evicted his own family by spending the rent money on Tara and blamed it on me. I imagined telling Kayla. I imagined sending her the screenshots right now. "Hey, look at this. Your husband is buying Chanel bags with Mom's pension." I shook my head. No, she wouldn't believe me. She would say I photoshopped it. She would say I was trying to stress her out to hurt the baby. She was too deep in the denial. She needed the fantasy of the visionary entrepreneur husband to justify her own lack of ambition. And Brenda? Brenda would die before she admitted she had been scammed. She would make excuses for him. She would say it was market research. I needed something irrefutable. I needed something biological. I thought about the baby. Brandon's legacy. He talked about that baby like it was a prop in his movie, my blood, my heir. But if he was spending all his time and money with Tara, was he even committed to this baby? I remembered something, a vague memory from years ago. The first time Brandon came to dinner, back when Dad was still alive, he had a limp. He made a joke about a motorcycle accident in Indiana. Nearly lost the family jewels, he had laughed. Dad had grimaced. Indiana. If I was going to nuke this family, I needed to nuke it from orbit. I couldn't just expose the money. I had to expose the man. I needed to get into the house. I waited until 9 a.m. the next morning. I practiced my voice in the mirror. I dropped my shoulders. I let my face sag. I needed to look beaten. I dialed Brenda's number. She answered on the second ring. "Well," she said. Her voice was icy. "Look who decided to crawl out of her hole." "Hi, Mom," I said. I injected a tremor into my voice. I saw the video, the one Kayla posted." "The whole world saw it, Naomi," Brenda said, her voice dripping with vindication. 50,000 people know what you did. The church is praying for you. Pastor Miller called me this morning asking if you were possessed." "I'm not possessed, Mom. I'm just tired." I let out a ragged sigh. "I can't do this anymore. The HR department suspended me. I might lose my job." There was a pause. I held my breath. "Good," Brenda said softly. "Maybe that's God's way of humbling you. You put your career before your blood. Now you have neither." "I know," I lied. I want to stop fighting. The lawyers are expensive. I was thinking, maybe we can work something out about the house." "We are listening," Brenda said. I could practically hear her smiling. "I need to come by," I said. "I have some boxes in the attic. My winter coats, my diplomas. If I'm going to sell the place or whatever, I need to get my stuff out. Can I come by for 30 minutes? Just a pack?" "You want to sell it?" Brenda asked sharply. "I don't know," I said. "I just want to talk and get my coats. It's getting cold." "Fine," Brenda said. "You can come, but don't expect a parade. Brandon is very upset with you. He's been meeting with investors all morning trying to fix the mess you made." Investors, right. "I'll be there in an hour," I said. "Thank you, Mama." I hung up. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my phone. My expression hadn't changed. I wasn't sad. I was hunting. I parked on the street, not the driveway. The house looked the same as it did 2 days ago, but now it felt different. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene. I walked up the steps. I didn't use my key. I knocked. Kayla opened the door. She was wearing the same sweatpants from the video. She looked tired, but when she saw me, her lip curled. "Did you bring the checkbook?" she asked. "I brought boxes," I said, holding up a stack of flattened cardboard. "Is Mom here?" "In the kitchen," Kayla said, stepping aside. "Don't look at me. I don't want your negative energy affecting the baby." I walked past her. The house smelled of bacon and tension. Brenda was sitting at the kitchen table reading a Bible. She didn't look up when I entered. "You have 30 minutes, she said to the page, "and then I want you out, unless you're ready to sign the deed over." "I'm just getting my coats," I said quietly. I walked to the hallway closet. I made a show of rummaging through it. I watched them from the corner of my eye. Brenda was engrossed in her scripture. Kayla was back on the couch, scrolling through TikTok. I slipped down the hallway toward the bathroom. "Where are you going?" Brandon's voice boomed. I froze. He was standing in the doorway of the master bedroom, my parents' old room, which he had claimed. He was wearing a towel around his waist. Steam billowed out behind him. "Bathroom," I said, keeping my head down. "It's a long drive." He glared at me. Water dripped from his hair onto the hardwood floor. "Hurry up," he sneered. "I don't want you lurking." He turned back into the bedroom to get dressed. I slipped into the bathroom and locked the door. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. I didn't use the toilet. I scanned the counter. There were 2 toothbrushes, one pink, one blue. The blue one was wet. I pulled a Ziploc bag from my pocket. I grabbed the blue toothbrush. I dropped it in the bag. Then I saw his hairbrush. It was a black plastic brush, full of dark brown hair. That was better. Hair follicles were gold. I pulled out a second bag. I used a tissue to pull a clump of hair from the brush. I sealed the bag. I shoved both bags into the inside pocket of my blazer. I flushed the toilet for appearances. I washed my hands, staring at myself in the mirror. Got you. I walked out of the bathroom. Brandon was still in the bedroom. I could hear him humming. He sounded happy. Why wouldn't he be? He had a wife paying his bills and a mistress boosting his ego. "I'm going to the attic," I called out to the living room. "Make it quick," Brenda shouted back. I pulled down the ladder in the hallway ceiling and climbed up. The attic was dusty and hot. It was filled with 30 years of accumulation. Christmas decorations, old clothes, broken furniture. I crawled toward the back, where I kept my college boxes. I found my winter coats. I threw them into a box. But that wasn't why I was here. I looked at the stack of plastic tubs against the far wall. Brenda was a hoarder of paper. She never threw away a bill, a receipt, or a medical record. She didn't organize them. She just shoved them into tubs. I found a tub marked "Family Important." I popped the lid. It was a chaos of paper, tax returns from 1999, sermon notes and medical files. I dug through it. I was looking for anything related to Brandon. When he moved in 3 years ago, Brenda had insisted on consolidating the files for insurance purposes. She wanted to prove he was a dependent so she could add him to the policy I paid for. I found a manila envelope labeled Brandon, Medical History. I opened it. There were vaccination records, a dental chart, and a thick packet from St. Vincent Hospital, Indianapolis. The date was 10 years ago. I pulled it out. My hands were shaking. I sat on a dusty trunk, the light from the single bulb swaying above me. Patient, Brandon James. Admit reason, motorcycle trauma. I flipped through the pages, broken ribs, concussion, road rash. Then I hit the surgical summary. I read the words, but my brain refused to process them at first. It was clinical, detached, procedure, exploratory laparotomy, bilateral orchiectomy, following severe testicular rupture. I blinked. I pulled out my phone. I didn't trust my memory of high school biology. I typed bilateral orchiectomy into the browser, the definition loaded, surgical removal of both testicles. I stared at the paper. Removal. I read the post-operative notes. Diagnosis, irreversible trauma. Patient advised on permanent sterility. Sperm banking decline due to emergency nature of procedure. Permanent sterility. I looked at the date again. 10 years ago, Brandon didn't just have a low sperm count. He didn't just have trouble conceiving. He was physically incapable of fathering a child. He had been castrated by a guardrail on I-65 a decade ago. I sat back, the dust swirling around me in the dim light. The silence of the attic was heavy. Downstairs, Kayla was rubbing her belly. She was talking to that baby. She was naming that baby, Baby Ellie. If Brandon was the father, it was a medical miracle that defied the laws of physics. But miracles didn't happen to people like Brandon. Scams did. This meant two things. One, Brandon knew he wasn't the father. He had to know. You don't forget a surgery like that, so he was faking it. He was playing along with the pregnancy to keep his hooks in the family money. Two, Kayla was lying. She knew the baby wasn't Brandon's. Or maybe she didn't know about the surgery. Maybe she thought she got away with it. Who was the father? I looked at the file. I looked at the bag in my pocket containing the hair sample. I didn't just have a smoking gun. I had a nuclear bomb. I shoved the file into my box, underneath my wool trench coat. I climbed down the ladder. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Brenda asked from the kitchen. I walked to the front door, carrying the box. I looked at her. I looked at Kayla. "Yes," I said. "I found exactly what I needed." "Good," Brenda said, turning a page in her Bible. "Now leave, and don't come back until you're ready to apologize." "I won't," I said. I walked out the door. I didn't look back. I drove straight to Helix Private Diagnostics on the north side. It was a sterile, nondescript building that smelled of antiseptic and secrets. I paid the expedited fee, $800, to have the sample processed within 48 hours. "It's for legal reasons," I told the technician, a woman who looked like she had seen everything. "We don't ask," she said, taking the Ziploc bag with the hair. "We just test." The next 2 days were a blur of agonizing silence. I stayed in my apartment. I didn't answer my phone. I watched the view count on Kayla's video climb to 80,000. The comments were getting vicious. People were finding my LinkedIn profile. I saw a thread on Reddit discussing whether I should be disbarred, even though I wasn't a lawyer. I barely ate. I survived on toast and anxiety. I sat at my window, watching the city, feeling like a ghost in my own life. What if I'm wrong? I thought. What if the surgery was reversed? What if he's a medical marvel? But then I would look at the photos of Tara. Even if he was the father, he was still a thief. I had enough to bury him financially, but I wanted to bury him emotionally. I wanted to leave no stone unturned. Wednesday morning, 10:14 a.m. My email chimed. Subject, genetic analysis complete, case number 4922. I clicked it. My hand hovered over the trackpad. This was it. The truth. I opened the PDF. It was dense. Pages of allele markers and genetic sequencing data. I skipped the science. I scrolled to the bottom, to the summary written in plain English. Conclusion. The DNA profile obtained from sample A, hair follicle, shows 0 genetic markers consistent with the prenatal screening data provided for subject B, fetus. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I let out a breath that sounded like a sob. 0? The medical report from the attic wasn't just paper, it was prophecy. Brandon was sterile. He had been shooting blanks for a decade. I sat back in my chair. The implications were staggering. Brandon knew he couldn't be the father, so he was faking the excitement to stay in the will. Kayla knew the baby wasn't Brandon's. She had to, unless she believed in immaculate conception. So who was the father? I thought about the timeline. 7 months ago, Brandon was spending all his time at the office with Tara. Kayla was alone, lonely, insecure. It didn't matter who it was. What mattered was that it wasn't Brandon. They were all conning each other. My mother was funding a fake legacy. Brandon was funding a mistress with stolen money. Kayla was trapping a sterile man with another man's baby. It was a circle of lies so perfect it was almost beautiful. I picked up my phone. It was time to end it. I called Saul, the family's attorney. He was actually a personal injury lawyer who had billboards on the highway, but he was representing them in the financial abuse claim. "Mr. Goodman," I said when he answered, "this is Naomi Williams." "Ms. Williams," he said, his voice oily. "We were about to file the injunction. My clients are very distressed." "I know," I said. "I'm distressed too. I want to settle." I heard him shift in his chair. "Settle? You mean financially?" "Yes," I said. "I can't take the public pressure. I want to make them an offer, a cash offer. To vacate the house and sign a non-disclosure agreement." "We are listening," Saul said. "My clients are reasonable people. They just want justice." "I have a conference room booked at the downtown library for tomorrow at noon," I said. "Bring them, all of them, and bring the settlement paperwork. I'll bring the check." "We will be there," Saul said. "And Naomi, make it a big check. Pain and suffering isn't cheap." "Oh, it will be substantial," I said. "I promise." I hung up. I looked at the folder on my desk, the bank statements, the mistress photos, the medical records, the DNA test. I wasn't bringing a check. I was bringing a projector. The conference room at the library was glass-walled, overlooking the street. It was neutral ground. I arrived an hour early. I set up my laptop. I connected it to the large monitor on the wall. I tested the remote. At noon sharp, they walked in. They looked like they were attending a funeral for a rich uncle they hated but needed money from. Brenda was wearing black, looking frail and tragic. She was leaning on a cane I had never seen her use before. Kayla waddled in, holding her back, wearing a shirt that said Mama Bear. Brandon strolled in last, wearing a suit that I recognized from the credit card statement. Bought yesterday at Macy's for $600. Saul, the lawyer, sat at the head of the table. "Let's make this quick," Brandon said, sitting down and putting his feet up on the rung of the chair. "I have meetings." "Yes," Brenda said, giving me a sad, disappointed look. "Naomi, we forgive you. We really do. We know you lashed out because you're lonely. We just want to ensure Kayla is provided for." "That's very big of you, Mom," I said. "The number is $500,000, Saul said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "For the house, the emotional distress, and the defamation of character caused by your eviction notice." $500,000, I repeated. "It's a fair price for family unity." Brandon smirked. "And to make the videos stop. Kayla has a lot of followers now. You don't want part 2 coming out, do you?" I looked at them. They were so confident. They thought I was broken. They thought I was there to pay the ransom. I stood up. I walked to the door and locked it. The click echoed in the room. "What are you doing?" Saul asked, frowning. "I'm countering," I said. I picked up the remote. "I don't have $500,000, but I do have a presentation." I pressed the button. The screen flared to life behind me. Slide 1, the pension. A giant image of the wire transfer appeared. August 12th, $85,000. Brenda gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Let's start with the assets," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Mom, you told me Dad left us nothing. You cried on the floor. But here is the transfer. $85,000. Where is it?" I invested it," Brenda stammered. "For the family." I clicked the remote. Slide 2, the siphon. The spreadsheet of transfers to Brandon Consultations, LLC appeared. "You invested it in Brandon," I said. $82,000 over 4 years, to a company that doesn't exist. Brenda looked at Brandon. He's a crypto genius. He told me the returns are triple." "Brandon," I asked, "where are the returns?" Brandon was sweating. "It's tied up. Ideally, you don't liquidate assets during a bull market. You don't understand finance, Naomi." I clicked the remote. Slide 3, the investment. The photo of Tara on the balcony appeared, then the photo of the Chanel bag, then the photo of the kiss in the lobby. "Is this the bull market?" I asked. "Her name is Tara. She lives in Unit 40B of the Glass Spire. The rent is paid by your consulting firm. The bags are paid by your consulting firm. Mom, you aren't investing in crypto. You're paying for your son-in-law's mistress." The room went silent. Absolutely silent. Kayla stared at the screen. She stared at the bag. "That's my bag," she whispered. "You told me you bought that for me for Christmas, but it got lost in the mail." I did," Brandon yelled. "This is fake. She photoshopped it." "He kissed her, Brandon," Brenda shrieked, standing up and dropping her cane. "I gave you my retirement. You told me we were building an empire." "I was," Brandon shouted. "I needed to network. She's a contact." "She's a 22-year-old influencer," I yelled back. "And you spent every dime of Mom's money on her." Kayla started sobbing. "You're cheating on me while I'm pregnant with your son?" Brandon turned on her, his face twisting into a snarl. "Oh, don't play the saint, Kayla. You're always nagging me. I needed an escape. I needed someone who treats me like a man. I treat you like a king," Kayla screamed. "I'm having your baby." I clicked the remote. Slide 4, the surgery. The medical report from St. Vincent Hospital filled the screen. Bilateral orchiectomy. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the noise, "you're not." Brandon froze. His face went gray. "What is that?" Kayla asked, squinting through her tears. "That," I said, "is a surgical report from 10 years ago. Brandon lost both testicles in a motorcycle accident. He is medically sterile. He cannot have children. He has 0 sperm count." Kayla looked at Brandon. "But you said we were trying. You said it was a miracle." "He lied," I said. "He played along to keep Mom paying his bills." Brenda turned on Brandon. She started hitting him with her purse. "You eunuch! You liar! You told me you were giving me a grandson." Brandon shoved her away. "Get off me! I didn't say anything. Kayla is the one who came home saying she was pregnant. I just didn't correct her." He pointed a finger at Kayla. "So tell us, honey, if I'm shooting blanks, who's the daddy?" All eyes turned to Kayla. She shrank into her chair. I clicked the remote one last time. Slide 5, the DNA probability of paternity, 0%. "I ran the test," I said. "It's confirmed. The baby isn't Brandon's." Kayla covered her face with her hands. "It was one time," she wailed. "Brandon was always at the office. I was lonely. It was just a guy from the gym. I didn't think it would happen." "A guy from the gym?" Brenda screamed. "You are carrying a bastard? And you let me throw a $20,000 party for it?" "I needed the security," Kayla cried. "I thought Brandon was rich. I thought he could take care of us." "He's broke," I shouted. "Everyone is broke. Mom stole from Dad. Brandon stole from Mom. And you tried to steal from me to cover up your affair." They were all standing now, screaming over each other. Brenda was cursing Kayla. Brandon was cursing Brenda. Kayla was sobbing. I stood there in the eye of the storm. I felt clean. "You're all dismissed," I said. "Get out." "We're not done," Saul shouted, trying to regain control. This is fraud," I said, "and I called the police 10 minutes ago." I unlocked the door just as 2 uniformed officers walked down the hallway. "That's him," I said, pointing at Brandon. "And her." I pointed at Brenda. I had filed the report that morning. Wire fraud for Brandon. Grand larceny for the theft of the pension funds. The officers stepped into the room. The screaming stopped instantly. "Brandon James?" the officer asked. "We have a warrant for your arrest regarding check fraud and wire fraud." They handcuffed him. He started crying, begging Brenda to help him. "I can't help you," Brenda spat. "I have nothing. You took it all." They took statements. They took names. I watched from the hallway. I saw Kayla sitting alone at the table, holding her belly. She had lost her husband, her mother's respect, and her home in the span of 10 minutes. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red. "Naomi," she whispered, "please, I have nowhere to go." I looked at her. I really looked at her. "I know," I said. "You should ask the guy from the gym if he has a spare room." I turned around. I picked up my laptop. I walked out of the library and into the sunlight. The air smelled like exhaust fumes and freedom. I had no family. I had no house. But I had my name, and I had my life back. It's been 90 days since the library showdown, and my life is unrecognizable. The fallout was spectacular. Brandon is currently awaiting trial. It turns out the consulting firm wasn't just stealing from my mother. He had taken deposits from 3 other elderly women at church for crypto investments. He's looking at 5 to 10 years. Brenda avoided jail time by pleading ignorance and testifying against him, but she lost everything. She lives in a subsidized senior apartment complex now. I hear she tells the neighbors that her daughter abandoned her. I don't care. Kayla moved in with the guy from the gym, a personal trainer named Kyle. He wasn't thrilled about the surprise baby, but they are making it work in a 1-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. I haven't met the baby. I sent a gift card to Target when she was born. That was my closure. As for me, I was reinstated at work with a promotion. The partners were impressed by how I handled the asset recovery. I sold the house on Maple Avenue for $50,000 over asking price. I took that money, combined it with my savings, and bought the condo I always wanted. I'm sitting on my balcony right now. I have a glass of wine in my hand. My phone is on silent. The only notification I care about is the one from my bank app. Balance, sufficient. Status, free. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from.